The auditorium in Moscow feels carefully curated for symbolism long before the cameras begin rolling. Rows of volunteers, municipal workers, uniformed men, and regional representatives, each wearing badges from the Mivmeste movement, fill the seats with a kind of choreographed anticipation. For years, this state-backed initiative has positioned itself as a civic force dedicated to improving living standards inside Russia, from social aid to local community projects. But today, the atmosphere is charged with something heavier. Russia is now deep into the third year of its offensive in Ukraine, and the movement has evolved far beyond its original mandate. What was once billed as a civilian service network has become an auxiliary pillar of wartime support, celebrated publicly and embraced politically by the Kremlin. As the hall lights shift toward the main entrance, dozens of camera shutters fire in synchronized bursts.
Спасибо. Добрый день, дорогие друзья. Я искренне... Садитесь, пожалуйста. Действительно нет вообще никаких границ государственных. Вообще нет никаких границ. Есть только... И не случайно, что это движение возникло 5 лет назад, когда вся страна, да и весь мир боролся с коронавирусной инфекцией.
Волонтером года 2002.
Случилось только благодаря тому, что мы вместе. Спасибо большое.
Владимир Владимирович, огромное спасибо, что вы сегодня...
Спасибо вам.
It's of importance that after the start of the special military operation, Edin note, Russia's term for its offensive against Ukraine, you also became involved in this work. Incidentally, the number of volunteers more than tripled in our country, from 10% to 32% of the population. And when the special military operation began, 630,000 people joined the work to support our guys, the heroes of the special military and their family members. Vladimir Putin steps onto the stage, moving with the deliberate pace that characterizes many of his public appearances. The audience rises almost instantly. The applause is enthusiastic, but it also carries the unmistakable signature of state-organized gatherings, orderly, unified, and deeply committed to presenting the image of a country behind its president at a moment of protracted conflict. He walks past large banners showcasing the bright yellow and orange color palette of Mivmeste, a brand the government has amplified continuously since the pandemic era. Today, the visuals carry a different undertone. Behind the smiling volunteer imagery lies a country navigating sanctions, demographic strain, battlefield casualties, and an economy rebuilt around wartime logistics. Against this backdrop, Putin's presence signals more than recognition of public service. It is a message, both to the international audience and to Russians themselves, that the internal front is as crucial as the military one. When Putin reaches the podium, the hall quiets in an instant. On the screens flanking the stage, his image appears larger than life. The camera angles cut between wide shots of the audience, tight frames of men in uniform, and the president's hands resting on the lectern. He begins his speech with calm familiarity, acknowledging the volunteers and organizers in front of him. For the Kremlin, Mivmeste serves as a narrative tool, proof that Russian society remains mobilized and united behind the government's agenda. As he speaks, the camera captures alternating perspectives, his profile illuminated under warm stage lighting, the movement's emblem glowing behind him, and close shots of volunteers nodding in recognition. The auditorium's acoustics make his voice resonate deeply, almost ceremonially. And gradually, the speech shifts toward the central purpose of the event, honoring the volunteers who have taken on a frontline adjacent role throughout the Ukraine conflict. The president pauses briefly before delivering the statement that defines the day's message. He leans slightly forward, a gesture Russian state broadcasters often frame as one of sincerity. Then, in his deliberate cadence, he says, "It is important to note that after the start of the special military operation, you also became involved in this work. Moreover, the number of volunteers has more than tripled in our country, rising from 10% to 32% of the population. And when the special military operation began, 630,000 people joined the task of providing support to our men, the heroes of the special military operation, and their families. Vladimir Putin, Russian president. The phrasing is not improvised. It is designed to highlight scale, sacrifice, and societal alignment, three pillars that have become central to Russian political messaging since 2022. By presenting volunteers as essential contributors to the war effort, the Kremlin integrates civilian participation into its broader narrative of national resilience. This shift helps justify prolonged military engagement and counters the perception of internal fatigue. Throughout the hall, the quote produces a wave of applause. The camera focuses on the faces of several volunteers, some visibly moved, others applauding with firm, rehearsed conviction. In the front rows sit representatives from regional chapters of the organization, many of whom have coordinated humanitarian shipments, medical support, and logistics channels for families of deployed soldiers. Their presence reflects a carefully managed balance, civic solidarity framed as patriotic duty. After the applause settles, Putin transitions into highlighting individuals who exemplify what the state considers extraordinary service. The award ceremony follows a familiar format. Wide shots showing the president stepping to the center of the stage, close-ups revealing polished medals and certificates, and medium shots of award recipients approaching him with practiced reverence. Each interaction is brief but meticulously orchestrated. He hands over the award, exchanges a few quiet words, listens attentively, and poses for a photograph. When one volunteer shares a short remark, inaudible to the cameras, Putin nods with the tight, controlled expressions he often uses in public. The Russian state broadcasters capture this moment from multiple angles, ensuring that his attentiveness becomes part of the visual narrative. For Kremlin media strategists, these gestures matter. They reinforce the image of a president deeply connected to his people during a period of national adversity. The ceremony continues with a steady rhythm. Applause rises and falls. Recipients walk across the stage with a mixture of pride and solemnity. Behind them, the movement's logo shifts subtly on the digital screen, intercut with footage of volunteers sorting humanitarian packages, driving supply trucks, or visiting wounded soldiers. The montage plays softly in the background, tying the individual award moments to a broader story of collective effort. As the event progresses, the camera teams, part of Russia's tightly controlled pool system, shift back to wide shots of the auditorium. The crowd is composed of a blend that reflects the government's narrative of unity: students, veterans, middle-aged coordinators, elderly volunteers, and uniformed service personnel. The hall is bright, orderly, and unmistakably curated to present an image of nationwide participation. Yet beneath the highly polished visuals lies a complex reality. Russia's prolonged war has reshaped the country's internal structure. Volunteers deliver aid not simply out of goodwill, but often as a consequence of declining state capacity in some regions or as part of government programs that incentivize participation. Many families of soldiers rely on these networks for emotional and material support. Social organizations like Mivmeste have become essential intermediaries between the state and its citizens, especially in communities impacted by military losses or economic strain. The camera returns to Putin as he continues emphasizing the movement's contributions. He speaks about unity, endurance, and patriotism, three themes that permeate nearly every major speech he has delivered since the 2022 invasion. The words reinforce the narrative that Russia's domestic stability is grounded in volunteerism and collective responsibility, rather than solely in governmental authority. This particular event also serves another purpose: sustaining morale at a time when public war fatigue is a growing concern. While opinion polling in Russia is difficult to interpret due to restrictions and social pressure, signs of strain have appeared in migration numbers, economic reports, and increased online censorship. Still, events like this one are crafted to project the opposite: the image of a country that remains cohesive, determined, and mobilized. The award ceremony eventually concludes, and Putin steps back to the podium for closing remarks. His tone remains steady, and he offers a final acknowledgement of the movement's work. The audience listens with attentive stillness. The visuals show volunteers leaning slightly forward as though absorbing a message meant to validate their role in a moment of historic pressure. Then comes the finale. Putin turns toward the audience as the ceremony ends and the first chants begin. At first they are faint, then unmistakable. Russia, Russia. The sound grows louder, echoing in the hall as he steps away from the lectern. The cameras track him walking off stage, maintaining crisp focus on his silhouette as the crowd's chant swells behind him. The moment is not spontaneous, Russian state events rarely are, but it is delivered with enough emotional force to fulfill its intended message. The president exits through a corridor marked with security officers and aides. Meanwhile, the crowd continues clapping, creating the impression of a nation rallying behind its leader, even as the war extends far beyond initial timelines. State broadcasters will later loop this moment in evening news cycles to emphasize internal unity. Once Putin disappears from view, volunteers begin rising from their seats, many lingering to take photos in the auditorium or greet representatives from regional delegations. The award recipients gather near the front rows, posing proudly with their certificates. For them, the recognition carries genuine emotional weight, whether rooted in patriotism, community service, or personal ties to the conflict. In the media room, editors working for state broadcasters prepare the footage for distribution. Each angle is selected to highlight loyalty, optimism, and national cohesion. The arrival shots show Putin entering confidently. The mid-speech frames emphasize his composure. The award moments portray compassion and attentiveness. And the final chant reinforces national identity. Together, these visuals construct a narrative that aligns closely with the Kremlin's communication strategy at this stage of the conflict. Beyond the hall, Russian officials will later share the clips across multiple platforms, pairing them with messages celebrating volunteer contributions and framing the event as evidence that society remains engaged despite the pressures of war. Agencies will issue translations emphasizing the scale of volunteer mobilization, particularly the statistic about 630,000 citizens joining support efforts after the 2022 offensive began. International observers will interpret the event differently. For Western governments and analysts, such gatherings are part of a broader propaganda ecosystem designed to show internal stability even as the military situation fluctuates. They note that statistics cited by Putin often lack independent verification and that civic organizations in Russia operate within strict limitations imposed by the state. Nevertheless, the symbolic power of the event within Russia remains significant. For domestic audiences, the ceremony reinforces a sense of shared struggle and national purpose. Inside the auditorium, as the last members of the movement begin to depart, the stage crew shadows the president's exit route and begins preparing the hall for the next scheduled meeting. The decorations remain in place, and the banners celebrating national unity continue to drape the walls. The large screens still glow softly with images of volunteers, smiling, delivering aid, stacking boxes, each frame designed to convey hope and perseverance. As the lights in the hall slowly dim, the lingering echoes of the chant fade into the background. The cameras stop recording, and the quiet hum of post-event activity takes over. Staff gather cables, reload equipment, and send rapid-fire updates to their editorial teams. Aides in suits review briefing notes while security personnel coordinate transport movements outside the venue. But the symbolic meaning of the event extends far past the room. For the Kremlin, it represents a carefully crafted moment that feeds into the larger story of national integration during wartime. For volunteers, it is a moment of recognition and validation. For observers abroad, it is another illustration of how Russia's domestic narrative is built through symbols, ceremony, and the deliberate amplification of public unity. As the official photographs circulate and state television packages the footage for broadcast, the message is clear. Russia's leadership wants the world to see a country that remains steadfast, mobilized, and unified. Whether this reflects the full reality across the nation is open to debate. But as far as the Kremlin is concerned, the optics matter, and today's event provides exactly the imagery it seeks. In this narrative environment, the numbers Putin highlighted will become key talking points for government ministries, local officials, and state-aligned commentators. The figure of 630,000 volunteers, repeated across news bulletins and social media channels, will serve as measurable evidence of societal commitment, and the award recipients, whose photographs now circulate widely online, will embody the Kremlin's preferred portrayal of grassroots patriotism. Meanwhile, Russia's war effort continues, and the domestic pressures associated with it persist. Inflation, supply shortages, and demographic challenges shape the daily realities of millions of families. But events like this allow the government to redirect public attention toward unity and contribution, anchoring the war within a broader moral narrative of collective responsibility. In the coming days, Kremlin officials will likely reference this event during press briefings, linking volunteerism to Russia's broader strategic goals. Regional governors may echo the president's message, urging citizens to join or expand community initiatives. And as winter deepens across Russia, the government will continue relying on volunteer networks to deliver aid and support to military families. For international audiences watching the footage, the ceremony is a window into how Russia is trying to balance the demands of a long conflict with the need to sustain internal cohesion. For domestic audiences, it is a reaffirmation of narratives that have become central to the country's wartime identity. The lights in the auditorium finally shut off. The banners are rolled away for reuse at the next event. Outside, snow lightly dusts the pavement as volunteers, journalists, and officials disperse into the cold Moscow evening. Another state event has come to a close, but its message, carefully constructed and widely amplified, will linger for days. And at the center of it all is the moment framed most prominently in the state broadcast, the president's declaration that over 500,000 Russians have stepped forward to support what the Kremlin continues to call the special military operation. The statement now moves from the stage into the bloodstream of the news cycle, shaping public discourse and reinforcing the narrative of a country that, at least in the government's telling, faces its challenges not in isolation, but together.